If there's one makeup product that I love, it is a one and done eyeshadow. And I have so many good recommendations for you. Like, you know me, you know I love a simple eye look, and these are the ones I'm reaching for the most. Before we jump in, I'm so excited to say that this portion of today's video is sponsored by BK Beauty. I was so excited when they reached out to me because, you know, I've been using their brushes for years. Their brushes are so high quality. They use synthetic vegan hairs in their brushes, and like I said, I've had mine for years and years, and I've washed them many, many times, and they're still the same great quality as the first time that I used them. And if you didn't know, you could actually shop BK Beauty in the YouTube shop, and they have an upcoming sale from July 3rd through July 8th, where you can use code YT20 on all eligible sale products, and that includes the super viral Angie Hot and Flashy set with this concealer brush that kind of broke the internet. I have been a huge fan of this one for years. In today's video, I'll be doing eye swatches of every single eyeshadow, and I'm using BK brushes for these. Thank you so much to BK Beauty for sponsoring this video, and let's jump in to the shadows. We're gonna do different categories here, and I will have timestamps if you want to jump to different ones, but I'm actually going to start, surprisingly, with matte eyeshadows. I feel like when we speak about one and done shadows, I generally hear people talking about like satin eyeshadows or any type of shimmer really, but I love a matte one and done shadow too, and I feel like they serve a purpose as well, but they don't get talked about as much. Also, for all of these, I included a ton of different price points. So we'll start with the most inexpensive option that I'm fearful is being discontinued. I'm seeing it on sale right now, but I guess that's good if you can grab it on sale, but bad if it's gonna be discontinued. But the e.l.f. No Budge Cream eyeshadows, I didn't see great reviews of these, and maybe it depends on the shade, but this shade that I have, I love. It's the shade Sand Dune, and it has this moussey texture to it. If you've ever felt one of the Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize shadows, it feels like that in the pan, where it's this like whipped mousse type of consistency. And this is pretty high pigment, but it can be sheared out pretty easily. On its own, I think it wears really well, or I also use this sometimes as a base. That's another purpose for any of the matte one and done shadows I'm going to talk about today. I think they're gorgeous on their own for a simple, subtle everyday look, but sometimes I'll reach for this as a base and then top it with a different shadow, maybe one of the sparkly ones from later on in the video. This, by far, the most inexpensive option I have to recommend today, but I think it's such a good one. This is the perfect shade of brown. And when they say no budge, like it's no joke. When I was doing all of the eye swatches, this was one of the hardest ones for me to remove. I felt like I was ripping my eyelid off, going back and forth with like my micellar water, like please come off my eye. So when they say no budge, that's an appropriate name. Also at the drugstore, but a slightly higher price point, is this shadow stick from Pixi. This one, I'm like, Kelly, you need to keep it brief because I have not stopped talking about this shadow stick from Pixi. If you are a no makeup lover and you want a simple, soft brown for the lid for every day, like this is the answer. I just use this so much. You can tell even on the packaging, like all the writing is wearing off because I'm using it like multiple times every single week. This is much less opaque than the e.l.f. one that I just referenced, so there's some level of sheerness to this, which is why I like it for everyday wear. But if you tend to like something higher impact, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this one for you. But it's the shade of brown in particular that I think is really fitting for daily wear. It's in the shade Matte Cognac. This one I will apply a few different ways. Sometimes I'll draw it directly on and use a brush. Sometimes I'll use my finger. I've even picked it up with a brush directly from the stick and then applied it like that. I think it's versatile in any of those ways, and I also think it works well as a base. This is a good one. It is a bit more expensive for the drugstore, but I feel like Pixi is a brand you can find on sale somewhat often. Okay, a mid-range brand for our matte shadows, we have About Face. These, they also actually make shimmers, but I want to specifically call out the matte ones. And in the demo clips, I combined these two. I guess that wouldn't make it a one and done shadow, it would make it a two shadow look, but I am combining them, and I wanted to show that just to highlight the versatility of these, the way you can mix and match them together. I have a ton of different shades, so you can use these as a one and done shadow like that, or you can use this as liquid liner or graphic liner. They're incredibly versatile, and I've even used these on other parts of my face. Like I have a pink one I've used for blush or mixed in with blush. I even think this shade would potentially work really well as a really cool toned contour shade. It's called Smell Before Rain, but the shade that I mixed it with for the demo clips was Cloned. Cloned? I used to love using this as a liquid eyeliner. And the only reason I've stopped is because I rarely wear liquid eyeliner anymore. But if I was wanting to use a brown one, this is perfect for that because once these set down, they don't budge. They are super long wearing and they sit comfortably on the skin as well. Easy to blend, easy to use. Every shade possible is out there. And for a lot of my recommendations, they are neutral because I love neutral shadows and that's what I wear on a day-to-day basis. But what I like about Face is that they have brighter shades. So a one and done shadow doesn't have to be brown, even though I'm usually reaching for that, but like your one and done shadow for every day could be a lilac like this. This is called Freaked. It could be a blue, it could be a green. Like you could still do a simple look that's just one singular product, but get the impact of a brighter color. And that's why I especially wanted to share this recommendation because they have a lot of options if you want to even step outside the neutral territory. Final mount recommendation is a little bit of a higher price point, and it is this from Merit. These were actually very polarizing when they launched, but I really do love these for the right person though. And I'll explain who I think would enjoy this and who I think should definitely skip over this. But the shade I want to recommend is Studio. This is my personal favorite. It's this like lighter taupey shade. All of the Merit ones lean relatively neutral. It's a lot of brown shades, but with this, it's very budge proof and it locks down almost immediately. So in my opinion, these only work if it's the only shadow you're going to be using. So that's why I recommend it for a one and done shadow. But if you're someone who likes to start with this, add in some eyeliner, add in some depth, add on a shimmer, I don't think this formulation is conducive to that. But if you just want to use it as a single one and done shadow, I think it's perfect for that because it does not budge. I reached for this constantly last summer on very hot and humid days because this was one of the few shadows I felt like could lock in without needing a base, and I knew it would last for a long time. So definitely want to check out. I also love the packaging. I think Merit just makes really luxe products in general. So now we're moving into shimmers. And I have created 3 subcategories under the shimmer umbrella because I think there are varying levels of shimmer shadows. I'm going to start with the ones that are less dramatic, but there still is an element of sparkle to them. So the least dramatic one, this is actually more of a satin. That's what I would describe it as, but this is from Supergoop. This is their shimmer shade SPF 30, an eyeshadow with sunscreen. Now, I will say you always want to be a little bit cautious about makeup products that contain sunscreen because to actually receive the amount of sun protection you're aiming for, you have to apply a pretty solid amount. So keep that in mind. Otherwise, I would try to layer it over your normal sunscreen. But what I always run into is I have the most watery eyes in the world. Like I go outside and it looks like I'm crying. So to put sunscreen on my eyes, it normally burns. I can't. So I'm so against putting it on my eyes. I hate doing it. This has been my answer. I'm like, okay, at least I can get some sun protection through this and it doesn't irritate my eyes. It's an interesting texture too. It's a lot more dense than I was expecting it to be when I first tried it because a lot of other single shadows like this in a pot have more of that whipped moussey consistency, but this actually feels like clay in terms of how dense it is to the touch. And it doesn't transfer a lot of shimmer onto the lid. It's gonna give you a sheer level of color with a little bit of that satin effect, but I like that because I think it makes it really wearable for every day. I mean, any everyday shadow could be anything, but I think it's a bit more subdued than a lot of other shadows I'm recommending. And because of that, I find myself wearing it on like a no makeup day, or sometimes I'll even wear this as a base and then put other shadows over top of it. And I actually think it works really well for that because it doesn't budge. I thought that it would when I first purchased it. I'm like, okay, this is probably gonna crease, but I really don't run into that. Okay, slightly more shimmer than that is the eyeshadow that I'm wearing currently. This is from Hourglass. It's the Scattered Light Shadow in Smoke. So these scattered light shadows in general are gorgeous. There's a lot of glitter to this, but not as glittery sparkly as some that we'll get into next. So I think they're a nice midpoint where you want something glittery and gorgeous, but not super over the top, I think this would be the perfect answer for that. Don't get me wrong, you can layer it up and apply a good amount of it to actually get a really significant level of sparkle, or you can kind of tap it on for something a little bit more subtle. What I ended up doing today was just running some bronzer in my crease so I have somewhat of a two-dimensional look. So I guess this isn't technically a one and done look I'm wearing right now because I did throw some bronzer in, but I find this to be just like so effortless for an everyday look. And I also think this sits really smooth on the eyelids as well. I don't think it emphasizes a lot of like texture, if that's a concern for you also. These, so luxe, so high-end, so gorgeous, highly recommend. The next subcategory in the glitter, like under the glittery umbrella, is topper shades. So these could be worn fully on their own, and that's where I'm recommending them, you know, as a one and done shadow. But I also love the versatility from these shadows topped on something else. So they don't have a super prominent base necessarily. There's not a really noticeable color, like you're more so getting the sparkle, which is like, these type of shadows have been my obsession for the last couple of years. And again, they're perfect for a one and done look that's a little more subtle, or when you're going more glam, you can layer them. So you can have the versatility. So we'll start with the most inexpensive option. It comes from Colourpop. It's the Super Shock Shadow in Ladybird. Now, I would say all of these ones that I'm about to recommend, they're all like, I'm gonna say they're siblings to Urban Decay Space Cowboy, which is one of my favorites. I chose not to include it today just because I feel like I've talked about it a million times, the internet has talked about it a million times, so I wanted to share some other options, but these are all giving that same type of look. This, I would say, is a little bit more of an intense version of Space Cowboy. Actually, all three that I'm recommending have more glitter and more shimmer than that one. The Super Shock Shadows, I know a lot of us are familiar with them. They have this almost wet, spongy texture to them. I recommend applying these with your finger, but you can use a brush as well. This also makes a gorgeous, shimmery inner corner pop. If you want that really bright inner corner, I think this is perfect for doing that with. Also, as you're watching the demo clips, as we're getting more and more into the shimmery shadows and the ones that have like significant amounts of glitter in them, I'm sure you're gonna start noticing more and more glitter all over my face. Like, obviously I had to like wash everyone off and like go back to it, which my eyes hurt, I will tell you that. But I could tell by the end of the video, I was like, I have glitter on my cheeks, I have glitter in my eyebrows. So like from here on out, just laugh with me if you're seeing the glitter all over my face, the way I think you probably are. This glitter topper is actually not an eyeshadow. It's a highlighter, but I want to throw it out there because it is the most perfect eyeshadow. It's from Fenty. It's their Diamond Bomb in How Many Carats. Now, I will say, I recognize that this is a lot of money to spend on a product that you're only going to use as eyeshadow versus using it as a highlighter. So I recognize that, and maybe some of the other ones would be a better choice if you only were using this for the eye, you know? But if you have this for your cheeks and you haven't tried it on your eyes, I think it's the most gorgeous eyeshadow. I love this as a topper. There are so many times where I've done an eyeshadow look and I'm like, it's fine, but it needs something else. What does it need? Oh, it needs How Many Carats, and that just amps it up. It gives it the glow, but because there's no base to this, it doesn't change the color of the eyeshadow underneath it. It's not turning it like frosty or blue or pink. The color is the same, but now there are more sparkles. So if you have this, I know this was a really viral product a few years ago for this like sparkly glittery cheek. Pull it out, put it on your eyes. It's gorgeous. And I think it's really pretty also for that one and done look. It almost makes your eyelid look like it's wet because I think any sparkly highlight like that gives the wet look. Like obviously up close you'll see the sparkle particles, but from a distance the way they reflect the light looks like this like glossy wet finish. This was a shadow I always thought would like have a viral moment but never did. It is from Jones Road and it's called So Pretty. And this shadow in the pan looks very silver, but on the eyes you can get more of that scattered topper effect. The way I've applied it for the demo clips, I applied a good amount of it, so I feel like you're seeing it translate as that silver, which is perfect for that. If you want like a silvery, somewhat more neutral, it's not too like metallic silver, but it is still that silver look. If you want that for an everyday one and done shadow look, I think this is perfect for that. And I also think that The shimmer particles in this are a bit more refined, so they sit on the lid in a smoothing, flattering way. But if you want it to be that topper and give you the effect of like Urban Decay Space Cowboy or the Diamond Bomb, just take a tiny bit on your finger, just a tiny bit, and then tap it over. That's the key to get the scattered look with shadow. Just like get it on your finger and then just gently tap it. You really don't want to load too much product up. You just want to get a few of the sparkle particles to land on the eye. So this is really perfect for that. I think this is a gorgeous shadow. I think the name is so funny too, because the first time I ever applied this, I like put it on my eye and I'm like, oh, it's so pretty. And I'm like, oh, that's why it's called So Pretty. Now we're still talking shimmers, but these are more multi-chrome, duochrome, dramatic, lots of colors. Like these could be used as toppers or obviously one and done shadows, but they have a lot more colors within them. There are a lot of flips and they are sparkly. Like those were sparkly before. Those were like extreme sparkle. Now we're getting into mega super extreme sparkle, okay? And I hope there's been something for everyone here. I tried to cover a lot of ground, okay? Let's talk about these from Danessa Myricks. This is the Colorfix foil, and they come in a lot of different shades. It's the most dramatic, glittery thing you have ever seen. And for the demo clips, I went like with a lot of it because I want you to see the flip, to see the green. But I think this provides so much versatility because you could pull it back a little bit and apply less and get less of that flip and impact. Like you could achieve something a little bit more subtle with that sparkle and the green. If this shade isn't calling to you also, they have about a million other ones. I will say, I think this requires slightly more effort than some of the other shadows just because it is a liquid in a squeezy tube. So you do have to go through that one extra step of like squeezing it out and picking it up. I mean, you could squeeze it out directly onto the eye, but I will say I think this is slightly less easy, simple than some of the other like eyeshadows in a pop that you could just pop on with your finger. But this is like a one and done shadow if you want something more glam. And same with these. This, I have one specific one I want to call out, but I will just make the general recommendation of stained glass shadows from Clionadh. Everything I just said about the Danessa Myricks in terms of flip and glitter and intensity and sparkle, it all carries over to these, but these are pressed powder shadows. These have slightly more of a base to them than the one that I just referenced, but these are so glittery gorgeous. By far, my most complimented eyeshadows. As a neutral lover, my personal favorite is Exothermic, which is the one I swatched on my eyes for the demo clips. But if you like color, you want something a bit brighter, they have about a million shades. And they're all so sparkly gorgeous. This was so much fun because I love a one and done shadow. Thank you so much to BK Beauty for sponsoring this video. Be sure to shop their sale between July 3rd and July 8th. And I will go ahead and see you in my next one. Bye.